Hi, and welcome to Lovins Reads Lovecraft. Here's my favorite part of the video. There's a tube. You can carry it on your back. I'll have to make a lid for it if I won't expect to use it again. Pirate hat. Try and go through this quick. Picture of me. Another useless pod. It has a hole in it, but I can put something in there. Use it in a film. American flag. And this is another throwaway item that I can't throw away because it's so surrealist. Use that in one of my toy videos for sure. Illusions, The Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah. The glorious bestseller by Richard Bach, author of Jonathan Livingston Seagull, The Bridge Across Forever, and One. This guy was huge. I never read him. I looked through it today. I don't know how people stomach that stuff. CBS Event Series, James Patterson. Zoo, Michael Ledwidge. Never heard of it. That was abandoned at the coffee shop today. This is a rare picture of me with a haircut. And a suit. Let's see. Flying in Water. Barbara Tomash. Whatever the hell that is. Some kind of old notebook of mine. Alright, David Lovins' Artist Statement booklet. I sent this in as part of my art school application. Stephen King, The Dead Zone. Robin Hobb, The Farseer. Assassin's Apprentice. The Crock of Gold. This is what is this? Artemis Fowl, The Arctic Incident. I don't know what that is. Basket. South Park Elementary. You Can Stop. But I enjoy smoking. I sure do. Stupid rabbit that reminds me of some guy I know. The beginnings of some kind of a spaceship that I'll build someday. I don't know. Some kind of old little coin purse. Alright, that's all the crap I brought over today. Alright. Oh my goodness. Alright, I only wasted 3 minutes of your time today. That's good to know. Today we're on to, as soon as I get my stupid glasses. Oh my goodness. Someone's got their music on. The Transition of Juan Romero. This story was written on September 16th, 1919, but was not published in Lovecraft's lifetime, probably because he repudiated it in later years and never prepared it for publication. It is of interest chiefly for its setting, an unspecified locale in the Southwest, a setting he would not use in any of his other work except for such ghost-written stories as The Curse of Yig, 1928, and The Mound, 1929 to 30. The tale is perhaps marred by excessive vagueness as to the nature of the supernatural phenomenon, but its hints of the cosmic foreshadow Lovecraft's later work. It first appeared in Marginalia, 1944. Of the events which took place at the Norton Mine on October 18th and 19th, 1894, I have no desire to speak. A sense of duty to science is all that impels me to recall, in these last years of my life, scenes and happenings fraught with a terror doubly acute, because I cannot wholly define it. But I believe that before I die I should tell what I know of the, shall I say, transition of Juan Romero. My name and origin need not be related to posterity. In fact, I fancy it is better that they should not be, for when a man suddenly migrates to the States or the colonies, he leaves his past behind him. Besides, what I once was is not in the least relevant to my narrative, save perhaps the fact that during my service in India, he never went to India, I was more at home amongst white-bearded native teachers than amongst my brother officers. I had delved not a little into odd eastern lore when overtaken by the calamities which brought about my new life in America's vast west. I don't think he ever went farther west than Chicago, if he even went that far. A life wherein I found it well to accept a name, my present one, which is very common and carries no meaning. In the summer and autumn, it kind of sounds like he's a little down. In the summer and autumn of 1894, I dwelled in the drear expanses of the Cactus Mountains, employed as a common laborer. He never worked. At the celebrated Norton Mine. He would never work in a mine, whose discovery by an aged prospector some years before had turned the surrounding region from a nearly unpeopled waste to a seething cauldron of sordid life. One of Lovecraft's greatest fictions is he presents himself in most of the stories as someone who works at a regular job. He's either a professor, teacher, a cavern of gold lying deep below a mountain lake, or is on a submarine, had enriched its venerable finder beyond his wildest dreams, and now formed the heart of extensive tunneling operations on the part of the corporation to which it had finally been sold. Additional grottos had been found, and the yield of yellow metal was exceedingly great, so that a mighty and heterogeneous army of miners toiled day and night in the numerous passages and rock hollows. The superintendent, a Mr. Arthur, often discussed the singularity of the local geological formations, speculating on the probable extent of the chain of caves, and estimating the future of the titanic mining enterprise. He considered the auriferous cavities the result of the action of water, and believed the last of them would soon be opened. It was not long after my arrival and employment that Juan Romero came to the Norton Mine, one of a large herd of unkempt Mexicans attracted thither from the neighboring country. He often comments, because he was very well kept in his appearance, and he often noticed and wrote about people who were unkempt, and he doesn't mean anything by saying Mexican. He wasn't really racist, it's just how people talked back then. One of a large herd of unkempt Mexicans attracted thither from the neighboring country. He at first commanded attention only because of his features, which, though plainly of the Red Indian type, were yet remarkable for their light color and refined conformation, being vastly unlike those of the average greaser or Paiute of the locality. It is curious that although he differed so widely from the mass of Hispanicized and tribal Indians, Romero gave not the least impression of Caucasian blood. Okay, so he is racist. I don't know. It used to upset me a lot to read these terms with him, but now it's just all part of the comedy. It was not the Castilian conquistador or the American pioneer, but the ancient and noble Aztec whom imagination called to view when the silent peon would rise in the early morning and gaze in fascination at the sun as it crept above the eastern hills, meanwhile stretching out his arms to the orb as if in the performance of some rite whose nature he did not himself comprehend. But save for his face, Romero was not in any way suggestive of nobility. Ignorant and dirty, He was at home amongst the other brown-skinned Mexicans, having come, so I was afterward told, from the very lowest sort of surroundings. He had been found as a child in a crude mountain hut, the only survivor of an epidemic which had stalked lethally by. Near the hut, close to a rather unusual rock fissure, had lain 2 skeletons, newly picked by vultures, and presumably forming the sole remains of his parents. No one recalled their identity, and they were soon forgotten by the many. Indeed, the crumbling of the adobe hut and the closing of the rock fissure by a subsequent avalanche had helped to efface even the scene from recollection. Reared by a Mexican cattle thief who had given him his name, Juan differed little from his fellows. The attachment which Romero manifested toward me was undoubtedly commenced through the quaint and ancient Hindu ring which I wore when not engaged in active labor. Of its nature and manner of coming into my possession, I cannot speak. It was my last link with a chapter of life forever closed, and I valued it highly. Soon I observed that the odd-looking Mexican was likewise interested, eyeing it with an expression that banished all suspicion of mere covetousness. Its hoary hieroglyphs seemed to stir some faint recollection in his untutored but active mind, though he could not possibly have beheld their like before. Within a few weeks after his advent, Romero was like a faithful servant to me. This notwithstanding the fact that I was myself but an ordinary miner. Our conversation was necessarily limited. He knew but a few words of English, while I found my Oxonian Spanish was something quite different from the patois of the peon of New Spain. Out of batteries. Oops.